Red Wing Heritage was founded by Charles Beckman in 1905 and has grown to become what I'd consider the most iconic brand for American-made boots. I'm Nick, by the way. I've made videos about boots since 2018. I don't know what I'm doing with my life either. And the first video I ever posted was, of course, about the Red Wing Iron Ranger. Although the first boot I ever got was the Red Wing Mock Toe, which might actually be more influential, but anyway, that aside. Over the last 120-ish years, work boots became a little more high-tech than this, and Red Wing started selling boots made overseas with more accessible pricing and more ASTM ratings, but they very wisely retained what became known as their heritage line, which continues to sell American-made boots that are modeled after those classic work boots of 100-ish years ago. But one of those boots didn't make it to the 2020s. And in the global community of boot enthusiasts, there was maybe no more mysterious a boot to me than Red Wing's Beckman. They took it off the market right as I started this channel. And for the next 6 years, it was the most talked about unbuyable boot. Everyone missed it. Where did it go? Why did it go? Will it ever come back? Countless industry people told me off the record throughout the years that it was coming back any day now, but I wasn't allowed to say it in a video, and it did not actually wind up coming back until 2024. I picked these up last year. I've worn them around shoe factories in England and jeans factories in Portugal and all over New York City, here where I live. And I'm going to tell you what the appeal is, how it compares to their other boots here, and what's changed. Because this is actually not that same Beckman that got taken off the market in 2018. It's not so much like a resurrection as it is an evolution or a mutation. So like, history is very important to this particular boot. While these days they sell quite a few more relaxed boots like the Weekender line, Red Wing Heritage is known for making boots for casual wear that used to be the kind of boots you'd wear to mine iron or hunt waterfowl. Boots made with technology that hasn't really progressed since the invention of the Goodyear welt in the 1860s. But while he did found a work boot company, Charles Beckman was a business owner. He wasn't actually doing much manual labor in his boots. So according to legend, and according to my friends at London's Son of a Stag, Beckman made this boot for himself and it was never even meant to go to market.
It wasn't meant to be a mass-produced boot, it was meant to be something for him.
It's a very nice sounding story, it might be made up, but I cited my source. So the Beckman, which wasn't actually released until the early 2000s, is a hybrid boot, or what's sometimes called a foreman boot, something that Beckman was able to wear on the factory floors he managed and not look too out of place in the office and boardrooms. Some people call this a dress boot. It absolutely is not a dress boot. It's more like this, like the Balmoral boot or something else with blind eyelets and Oxford lacing. But putting all that aside, yes, the Beckman was and is today Red Wing's dressy-est boot. So what makes the Beckman smarter than Red Wing's work boots? Here we're at the Beckman versus Blacksmith section of the video because everyone always asks how those two boots compare. And the Beckman is slimmer. The main thing. And also this boot is a lot more expensive. The Beckman is $400, the Iron Ranger is $350, and the Blacksmith is all the way down at $330. But let's stay on the aesthetic here. One thing that defines a work boot is roominess, a good amount of volume to allow for more movement than a sophisticated almond-toed dress shoe or boot. The 2024 Beckman is made on a different last to the best-selling Blacksmith. It's a bit less chunky and it is indeed more versatile. While this is not one of those tapered dressy toes, the Beckman is definitely easier to wear with pants that are not like very loose and baggy. Like the Blacksmith and the Iron Ranger look very big and kind of clown-like when you're wearing them with tapered or slim or fitted trousers. That's not the case with the Beckman. So yeah, it's definitely more versatile. But there are a few other more subtle differences that make the Beckman just a little bit smarter. Like, note the tonal stitching here, which makes it look a bit less workhorsey than the contrast stitching you get on the Blacksmith. Think about how the contrast stitching on your jeans dresses them down a bit and makes you think more about how tough they're made. The same goes for the eyelets here. The Beckmans don't contrast as much as the Blacksmiths do, and definitely not as much as the Iron Rangers do. The rolled collar is considered dressier than the raw edges you get on like the Iron Rangers collar here, although the Blacksmith, to be fair, does have rolled edges as well. Internally, the Beckman's made with a fiberglass shank, while this is made with a steel shank. That's one of the reasons why this smarter boot is appropriately just a little bit lighter as well. And also the Beckman has some cushioning underneath the heel, like just a little bit of foam, whereas the Blacksmith and the Iron Ranger do not. But I think the main reason for the price difference is that the Beckman has different leathers. Besides one of the mock toes, and that's just right now, this is currently the only boot that comes in what Red Wing calls their Excalibur leathers. And actually the other two Beckman leathers don't seem to be sold on any of their boots. I mean, again, right now. One difference between these two reddish leathers we've got here is like the Blacksmith is full grain. Like you really can see the animal's skin pattern here on the Blacksmith, while the Excalibur has been buffed to be a bit smoother. And the main thing people note though is that the Excalibur leathers are a bit shinier, and they also accept a shine if you really want to polish them up. Whereas the more worky oil tan leathers like this one don't really like to get shined up. The smoothness and shininess, of course, makes the Beckmans a little bit smarter. I talked to Red Wing's design director, Mike Larson, as part of my research for this video, and he said the Excaliburs have more of a elegant, classic dress look. And while he did call this a pull-up leather, and the color will get a bit more dynamic as it ages, the Excaliburs don't have the same level of two-tone pull-up effect that Red Wing's more casual leathers have and develop with wear. The Excaliburs are just a little bit less geared toward developing dramatic highs and lows in the color like this, and a bit more geared toward being shiny and smart. Also, unrelated to dressiness, the Beckman here has a half sole instead of the full sole on this, so that also makes it just a little bit more flexible and like marginally lighter weight. So while the Beckman is not a dress boot, it is a smart boot, certainly by Red Wing standards. And yes, it is a lot easier to wear to an office. Now you might have noticed earlier that I called this the 2024 Beckman, and that's because the original Beckman that went to market in the early 2000s was actually made on the same last as the Blacksmith and the Iron Ranger, the last being the foot-shaped mold that determines the shape of the boot. So the Beckman didn't used to be slimmer than the Blacksmith. The main differences back then were the smarter leathers, and also the old version did not have speed hooks here. And the speed hooks, while they make a boot easier to get on and off quickly, they do dress down a boot a bit. If you can see them anyway, which I guess you probably wouldn't if you're wearing smarter trousers. So the new Beckmans differ from the old ones primarily by the new last, I guess secondarily by the speed hooks, but it also looks like the old Beckmans did not have the dressier tonal stitching that you get here. And as I understand it, let's look at Bootlosophy's video. Yes, the sole was different as well on the old Beckmans. The new Beckmans have what they call the grow cord sole, and it's a little bit unclear as to how big a deal that is. Some sources tell you that much like World War II service boots, this sole is partly made with tire cords because we were running low on rubber during wartime. But Mike Larson at Red Wing told me that these two soles are made with the same rubber compound, so I don't know. It looks cool though. There's a lot more to say about the Beckman's history, the boots that came after it to replace it, and the different versions of the Beckman that have appeared throughout the years and throughout the world. Like, there's a whole book's worth of stories about the Beckmans that were just sold in Japan, but I'd be here all day. However, I did make this video on Japan exclusive Red Wings with a few Red Wing employees, if that interests you. It's pretty cool. It's a whole different market out there. Now, most people come to reviews for info about sizing and comfort, so let's get into it. And it's actually extra tricky for this boot because it is on an unusually slim last, and because Red Wing tells you to order your true size, which means your Brannock size, which means the one you get from the foot measuring device at the shoe store. This is actually uncommon to order your Brannock size for a Goodyear welted boot, and I think all of other Red Wings boots, if not their best known boots, you go down half a size. So I'm an 11.5 on a Brannock device. Most of my sneakers are on a 12. Sneakers usually run small. And in all of my other Red Wing boots, I'm an 11. But for this one, I'm meant to get an 11.5. But I didn't. I got an 11 because I kind of assumed I was getting my usual Red Wing size. And look, when I'm wearing like mid-weight crew socks or lighter weight socks, these do not feel small. I didn't feel like I'd gotten the wrong size. I actually only just found out that I got the wrong size, but it is true. I did get these almost a year ago, and when I needed thick winter socks in these, yeah, they were pretty tight in there. So while I'm not upset about getting an 11, you actually should order your true size and not your usual Red Wing size that you get on the number 8 last, which is what they use on the Blacksmith and Iron Ranger. And maybe you could consider getting an extra pair of insoles to take up extra volume if you worried they're gonna feel big with thinner socks. Fit and sizing is also kind of where you talk about comfort, and a lot of people said that the maybe less oily leather on the Beckmans makes the break-in more difficult, but I personally did not have a tough break-in with these at all. That said, I have learned that it's often luck of the draw, like completely random as to whether or not you'll get a tough break-in or not. Like the Iron Ranger and the Blacksmith are basically the same boot, construction-wise and leather-wise. I had a very tough break-in with the Iron Ranger and no break-in with the Blacksmith, and I know plenty of people have the opposite experience. It's really just kind of a coin flip. I won't tell you that you won't have a tough break-in with the Beckman. It seems in all likelihood you will. I didn't, but you know, just expect one, and then you'll be happy if you don't get one. One more note on the comfort. There's a lot of confusion out there about whether this boot has a midsole. The Blacksmith and the Iron Ranger don't have one. Ostensibly, it's to make them more flexible, like easier to crouch down when you're working in them, that kind of thing. Another consequence of that build is that the Blacksmith and Iron Ranger have pretty crummy shock absorption, even for a traditionally made boot, like that doesn't have shock absorbing foam in there or something. And like, these are comments from guys I've seen around the internet about the midsole they're so excited to have on the Beckman. But again, Mike Larson at Red Wing and also Vince at Truman Boots, I spoke to both of them and they said, no, there is no midsole here. But here's what Mike said. I said, does it have a midsole? He said, no midsole for the Beckman. I said, but look at all these comments from people saying it has a midsole. Is it because it has a foam heel pad? And he said, people often confuse midsole with insole. It's one of my biggest pet peeves. But the Beckman does have a leather covered foam heel pad which sits on top of the leather insole. And the Blacksmith and Iron Ranger do not have that. I guess that's where the confusion comes from. But no, there is no midsole in a Beckman, if that matters to you. But again, it is better at shock absorption a little bit than these other work boots because of that foam. So that is nice because again, without that midsole, the Iron Ranger and Blacksmith, you kind of feel the shock like rattling up to your knees when you walk around in them. It's, I mean, it's fine. It's not a huge deal, but you get an extra bit of comfort here with the Beckman, it's true. Although a lot of people don't like any artificial components in their Red Wing boots. And also, again, that use of the half sole makes it just a tiny bit more flexible. All right, let's wrap this up with some pros and cons. This is the smartest Red Wing boot for all those reasons I mentioned when comparing it to the Blacksmith. It's definitely the best Red Wing to wear business casual, but it's also really is fine with a t-shirt. It's not too dressy. It's made in America. It has marginally better shock absorption than the other Red Wings around here. It's still resellable and water resistant and long lasting though. And like, it is important to note that while the leather is a bit less outdoorsy, this boot is still just as tough as the brand's work boots while looking a little nicer. It has exclusive leathers, which is always exciting. SP Foot is a really well-regarded tannery. They don't just make leathers for Red Wing, although Red Wing does own it, which gives them a nice amount of quality control over the leathers. You can have shiny, smart Red Wings. That's a big deal to a lot of guys. The leathers you won't get on other Red Wings, except maybe you can get this black cherry one on a mock toe right now, maybe. Anyway, overall, it's a smart Red Wing. It's not a dress Red Wing, but it is an exciting amount of dressiness for this brand. It gives you access to a whole new way to wear Red Wings, which is a brand a lot of people are in love with. It's very cool for enthusiasts. Downsides, they're $400, man. $70 more than Blacksmith. And what you're getting for that money is a slimmer boot and rare leather, and I guess some padding under the heel, which you could always just buy for less if you wanted to stick that on your Blacksmith. One could say that you can wear this in more places than the Blacksmith. So one could argue you're getting more boot, and maybe you could justify the more money that way. But yeah, materially speaking, you're mostly paying extra for the different leather, aren't you? But that is worth it though for a lot of enthusiasts. If you want to peruse competitors, I've got a video on Iron Ranger alternatives. It'll be pretty helpful, but they're all pretty chunky. A boot that's made in America and looks like this. I don't know, man, Truman Boots has the 56 last, which is probably a better made boot and about the same price sometimes. It's not the same look. And also Truman Boots are a lot heavier. They're great boots though. Anyway, other cons are you don't get the roominess of the more casual Red Wings, which is kind of the point of the Beckman, to be fair. It'd be weird to order that and expect it to be roomy, except that the old one was roomy, you know? And that's also worth noting if you are closer to an E-width foot, those guys can often just wear the number 8 last just fine. This one, you probably can't. And lastly, like this boot was released after a lot of Red Wing enthusiasts begged for the Beckman to return. And like, this actually isn't that old Beckman. You didn't get that back. Realistically, it's a very small number of people who will be mad or sad about that. But if you're this far into a Beckman video, you might be one of them. So note that this is not the historical Beckman of the vintage years of 2008, you know? This is not that same boot, but you might think it's better. All right, that's the Beckman. It is made in a way that it's capable of some work, but you can also take it to a nice dinner. Definitely the most versatile Red Wing heritage boot right now, I think, in my opinion. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what I missed in my damning comparison to other boots and the price point that the Beckman has sold at. And yeah, make sure you subscribe as well for more reviews and also just videos on casual, durable menswear and footwear. I'll catch you for the next one.